Hey guys, just want to give a shout out to our sponsor for today's episode, Squad QL, who sponsored us for, I believe, the last 5 weeks now. So big shout out to them.
Squad.
If you're not familiar, this is the first time you're hearing about them. Squad QL can link up with any league on Yahoo, ESPN, or CBS. It'll pull in your roster, league settings, and scoring system, help you get waiver recommendations, trade recommendations, and help you set your lineup every single week. So head over to squadql.com to get an extra advantage and win your league this year. The all-in-one fantasy football manager app. If you're also interested in daily, check out RotoQL from the same team, rotoql.com, trusted by over 100,000 DFS players worldwide. I guess we had to say 100,001 because Dan uses it now.
Yeah.
All right, let's start the show live. And live from Springfield, Illinois, we are Beer Fueled Fantasy Football.
Hey, we're actually live this time.
Holy shit, we're live.
That's not actually normally been the case when you said, hey, we're live.
Yep, now my fuck up is just the truth.
It is the truth.
It's pretty much live.
For those of you that are tuning in or have already tuned in live, we decided on the recording on Friday we were just going to start doing this way. We've tested nothing. We've tried nothing ahead of time. So
Wish us luck.
Yeah, we're just going for it.
In the Beer Fueled Fantasy way.
Yep, we don't edit anyway, so
we don't run play action on 4th and 5. We don't run RPO.
We don't run an RPO.
We don't run an RPO on 4th and 5. We go for it.
All right, guys. We are Beer Fueled Fantasy Football. Welcome back. I am Nick Sparts, joined as always by Christopher Hopper.
What's up, guys? Sorry, we're already getting questions.
We already get questions.
What's up? Hey, Ryan wants to know. Standard League, he's down 36. He has Mahomes, and he needs to choose between Watkins or Royce. What do you think?
Standard?
Watkins is going to be higher upside.
Any format, I'm going Watkins, I think.
Watkins is going to be higher upside. Swing for the fences. I guess we'll try to answer questions as we do this. We don't know how we're going to do this format yet, so screw it. Let's go.
Maybe we'll try to grab one or two between segments or something. We'll figure this out.
We'll figure it out.
But he is at Hot BFF with 2 Ps if you want to follow him on Twitter. And then we got Dan Thury.
Didn't I say that?
You did not.
At Thury BFF, here for all your answers and your hashtag breaking news.
I'll keep these two on the question thing. I'm going to try to run the rest of the show. We're going to see how we stumble through this mess.
We'll get better as we go.
So glad
if you want to follow the entire show, it is Beerfield FF on Twitter, Instagram, and Untapped. Twitter for keeping track of what we post, any insights we may have for you day to day. Instagram is where you can see all the can art. And Dan is going to try to maybe do start-sit stuff there. I'm not sure what's going on.
I need more free time. I need to get one job before I can start.
Can I do breaking news before the news segment?
Sure.
Sources told ESPN Le'Veon Bell expects to report to the Steelers during the Week 7 bye.
Okay.
And this is real. That was a sleeper bot notification. I didn't make it up like somebody sitting to my left.
We will discuss it more when we get to the news segment. Then
I didn't make anything up. I just can't read.
Untapped, where you can check out our beer reviews. We're up to about 20 people following us there. Appreciate all of that. Beerfield Fantasy Football. If you're watching us live on YouTube right now, you're already subscribed there most likely. So cool. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, we didn't pre-advertise this.
Turn on those notifications.
If you're
all the updates.
If you're listening to us on the podcast and you want to follow live and get this as soon as it drops, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, Beerfield Fantasy Football.
Or interact with us, maybe. I don't know if we'll keep doing that. We'll see.
We go live about 5:45 Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and 10:30 in the morning on Sunday. Monday, you guys should know our format at this point. If you don't follow the YouTube channel at this point, though, Sunday is where we do inactives, news, and answer your start-sit questions. If you want to help us out additionally, you can drop reviews on iTunes, like and comment on YouTube videos. All that helps drive traffic to the show. Hit DM Beerfield FF or email beerfieldfantasy@gmail.com if you guys are interested in merch or supporting us on our Patreon account. Let's preview a beer. Beerfield. And it's October, which means it's time for all the pumpkin beer.
White girls
didn't even wait a day.
Nope.
Oh, wow. I actually spelled out pumpkin, and it's punkin. I put it wrong in the YouTube stuff. We'll change that.
Dan also typed it wrong in the show notes.
Good. Did I?
Yep, you did pumpkin beer.
Great minds.
That's how it's... No, I've written down pumpkin.
Oh no, that's actually
I'm
just
right.
the title of it.
It's called Punkin Ale.
It's pumpkin ale. I actually spelled pumpkin right.
Oh,
I
never
didn't
mind.
put
Thanks, Nick.
I didn't put pumpkin in. I actually
Got it.
Yeah,
I was wrong there. Apologies.
that was my bad.
So we have Dogfish Head Punkin Ale. They're based out of Milton, Delaware. Second time we've had them on the show. Last time was episode 96, which would have been December last year for the Week 16 preview. It's a full-bodied brown ale with smooth hints of pumpkin and brown sugar. Clocks in 7% ABV, 28 IBUs. We'll give you a full review once we've recapped the noon games.
News.
And I'm very glad we're a beer-fueled show because a few of these games are going to be real tough to get through. We have a few fun ones and some real ugly ones. Up first, though, we do have to get through some news. Bucks have confirmed Jameis Winston will be their starting quarterback when they come off the bye Week 6 against the Falcons.
Surprise.
Yeah.
Nobody at all.
There was a ton of people who were like, Winston's not coming back, and I thought they were crazy. So it does not surprise us at all.
Nope. I feel like I predicted this.
No, we all thought that.
Dud against the Bears,
Yep.
and Winston's back after the bye.
Yeah, and we even said he may not make it through the game, and he made it through one half.
So if you've been
I'm
holding
surprised
him,
he made it through 1/2.
if you've been holding him, great. If you haven't been holding him and he's on your waiver wire, go get him. He was the quarterback one through the last,
5-6 weeks of the
games
season
last year.
Yeah, his volume stats were awesome, and this offense seems to be the best in terms of creativity that this team's had in a long time.
Yep.
All right, and then the other piece of news, it sounds like Bell may report over the Week 7 bye. First question is, do we trust this?
I don't know. I trust it as much as I trust anything else I've heard about Le'Veon Bell. So we'll see. I mean, I don't think he's going to keep losing out on $800,000 a week for the entire season. So
Yeah, but he also doesn't want them to immediately start giving him 25 touches a game when he comes back either. So
well, it's about halfway.
I think
through.
you'll get that as soon as
If he reports during the Week 7 bye, he comes back Week 8. That's halfway through the season.
Yeah,
So.
and that's I mean, Connor's played well enough. He should earn more of a role, but as you've seen through the history of this with Le'Veon Bell, is when he gets back, it's all him.
well, and just with Connor, it's been all Connor. So
Yeah.
they don't seem interested in having.
no,
a second
they've used
back.
Ryan Switzer as a pass catching.
Yeah, and he got one
back. carry.
carry. So that's all I got for news. Everything else was injury related, so we'll get to that when we get close to the waiver wire segment. Let's recap some games.
That news segment was real fast.
Wasn't a lot to talk about.
Wish I had a script.
What the hell happened?
All right, so we're taking you back in time, way back to noon yesterday. To go ahead and recap all these games, starting it off, Dolphins versus the Patriots. I thought this one might be close. It turned out to be just a complete shellacking. Patriots win 38-7. Dolphins get the score late. Hopper, anything to salvage from the Dolphins, and what do we take away from the Patriots?
So, starting with the Dolphins, this is one of the several apologies I think we're giving out on this show.
There's lots of apologies.
Sorry about the Ryan Tannehill thing. He had done relatively well over his last several games and, yardage-wise against the Patriots, and this was just a complete dud. Only 100 yards and a pick. Nothing else to go there. Kind of a throw out for him. Kenyon Drake, Frank Gore. Drake only had 3 rushing attempts and 2 targets in this one. Gore carried the ball 11 times for 46 yards. Drake's currently the running back 33 right now, and this was his worst game of the season. He's still week-to-week flex consideration, or do you firmly place him in timeout?
He's on timeout.
He is in the corner.
I might be trying to move.
Also,
this.
they just
can't move him
they just
right
lost
now.
their center for the year to make things even worse.
Oh, good.
Pouncey.
Pouncey's out?
No, they don't
Oh.
have Pouncey anymore. Pouncey's on,
He's
on the
in-
Chargers.
Right.
Oh, that's right.
It's whoever they got to replace Pouncey is
Relax.
now out for the year.
It's along with Sitton, too. So Gore was still relatively efficient, so
Yeah, he's looked better.
he has. Kenny Stills, Albert Wilson, they tied with 6 targets. Stills only racked up 40 yards. This is a throwaway for him, and the tight ends are still completely undecided. So pretty much throw this one out for the Dolphins.
I mean, my only concern here is even in a game where they were really behind, Wilson and Stills only had 6 targets.
Yeah. Well, the offense didn't run a ton of plays, I don't think.
I think the offense is what we kind of predicted coming into it. They're very hit or miss. I mean, we're through 4 weeks. We have no clue what to make of this offense.
Well, and they're not running a ton of plays regardless.
Well, which
so.
tells me one of two things, because they've been scoring on a lot of big plays so far this year. It seems like if they don't score on a big play, they cannot sustain drives,
No, they can't sustain drives.
which that is a major red flag.
It is, because they're just going to take away the big plays.
This is like the
try to make them
Bengals from
sustain
last year.
something. But yeah, they don't have a running game. They don't really have a consistent underneath possession threat that's established yet. So it's big player bust.
I mean, if you're starting Dolphins at this point, you're really praying for big plays, or it's not going to happen. I don't think.
I think Stills is the only one. Tannehill maybe in plus matchups at home.
That's about it.
That's about it. For the Patriots, Tom Brady, I want to discuss him for a bit. He gave you a relatively normal day, 23-35, 274 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. He's currently the quarterback 21. Are we still considering him a weekly must-start? Is it something where we expect the Patriots to kick it in like we did last year? Is it something to where if there's better options, go ahead?
Well, they get Edelman back.
They do get Edelman back. I know that.
So that should help. That at least will bump his floor up a bit, because then they can start passing to run. And James White looked freaking sweet.
He did.
Catching the ball for him. So,
but it's not the skill positions. It's the quarterback I'm asking about.
Yeah, it's at this point... I mean, yeah, there's so many good quarterbacks right now that, yeah, Brady is definitely not an every week lock and load start. But if it's at least an average matchup, I'm probably starting him anyway.
I mean, yeah, he's probably not going to dud you, but I'm for so many years it's been if you have Brady, there's no way you're sitting him for anybody. And now being the quarterback 21, he couldn't sustain, with Gronk, with Chris Hogan there. So is Edelman going to make that much of a difference? I mean, probably, but we'll see.
But yeah, it's definitely
he's not.
Yeah, he's
not right now. There is like we've always stated, there's a bunch of streaming options out there. You're playing matchups more so than you're playing namesake.
And it's not like Brady's been a complete dud through first 4 games and he's ended up as quarterback 21. He's been okay. It's just there's been so many other quarterbacks just scoring out of their minds.
Yeah, you're not going to play him against Jacksonville.
Right. All right, on to the running backs. Sony Michel, I'm not going to apologize for this one because you didn't have anything to predict here. There was nothing to base it on. It was, okay, he's going to get volume. You haven't seen him do much with what he had gotten. How much volume was he going to get? Nobody knows. So we adjust from here going forward. We will, of course, correct that. He carried the ball 25 times, had no targets, 125 yards, though. James White chipped in another 8 for 44 and 1 on the ground with 8 for 68 and 1 through the air. He's had 8 or more targets in 3 out of 4 matchups. So opinion on both guys going forward. Wide receiver 2's flex consideration.
Well, I don't think they're wide receivers.
Or, sorry, running backs.
James White's almost
James White might as well
pretty
be a wide
much
receiver.
It's like
I wish he
Gronk
did the dual
running
designation.
backs.
I think both are probably startable week to week at this point. I doubt Sony Michel ever hits 25 carries again this season. This was a real weird game script.
It was they were ahead the entire time.
I mean,
and up big.
I'm not going to say he'll never hit it again. They still have games against the Jets and Bills where they can put up a bunch of points and then find themselves in a way, like just like this, in a way.
Bills maybe. The Jets have looked more competent.
Belichick and Josh McDaniels.
The Dolphins looked in this one.
They've always found ways. If they can find a formula to win in that game, they're going to abuse it. What stands out to me is in a positive game script, or I guess in a negative game script for James White, he found himself to get 8 targets. That's what I really liked and take away from it. He's getting work in both.
Well, I mean, the other
how much that's Edelman gone?
Edelman gone and no Burkhead. So
yeah,
Burkhead is a big thing for both of these guys.
Yeah.
That they're the only 2 competent running backs right now. So
and they like to use 2.
Yeah.
At least.
And with Burkhead and Hill on IR, I think James White gets the majority of the passing. Michel gets the majority of the carries.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't hit 25, probably that 15 to 20 range.
Yeah.
My bigger question is, can he continue to be efficient with those carries?
Especially depending on their matchups coming up. I have not checked out the Patriots recently, but if they have some good matchups, I like them a lot. If it's tougher matchups, I'd be a little more cautious.
Yeah, I'm going to treat them both as high-end flex guys until
I agree.
We have a little bit more to dig our feet into. Philip Dorsett was the leading wide receiver in this one. 7 targets, 55 yards, and a touchdown. Gordon caught both of his for 33. Patterson, 5 targets, 3 receptions, 54 yards, and a touchdown. Edelman's back this week, so Hurts, Dorsett. Gordon helps maybe because of coverage if he can fully integrate into the offense. Don't buy into that yet.
He was at less than 25% snaps.
Right. Well, and again, I expect that to increase as things go on.
But yeah, Edelman coming back, he immediately becomes the one. No one else has taken a hold of this job at all to compete with him. He will be the number 1 receiver.
I don't know that Dorsett or anybody else is viable to run out there with Edelman back until they show you that they're going to do it.
Yeah, until we start seeing them produce without them, they're all holds at best.
Are you going to play him this Thursday night if you have him?
Edelman?
New England and the Colts Thursday night.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I'm absolutely playing him.
Okay. That's a lot
I also don't have
not even hesitating on that one.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm not, 100% confident T.Y. Hilton plays Thursday night,
I don't think
which
he
is the
will.
league I have Edelman in. So
Okay.
Well,
that was
extra
convenient.
reasons for you then.
Yeah.
Gronk 7 targets, 4 for 44 yards and an ankle injury. No analysis there.
Hope he's back for the Thursday night
He
game.
should be. That's it.
All right, this one should be a little faster. Bills versus the Packers. Packers 22, Bills nothing. Josh Allen, complete disaster for the Bills. 4.6 yards per attempt, 2 picks, sacked 7 times, and a fumble. Team just turned right back into the pumpkin that we're drinking right now. Absolutely nothing out of this.
It tastes so delicious.
It was delicious,
Awkward.
but it was terrible to watch. Apologies for McCoy. This is a couple things here. The game script got even more out of control than we thought. It was just and it wasn't because the Packers were scoring. It's because they could not sustain drives at all. They just 3 plays, punt it, 3 plays, punt it over and over and over
Josh
again.
Allen looked like a rookie.
Or they just straight up turn it over. He was able to get 37 yards on his only 8 touches, so the efficiency wasn't terrible. But Ivory was getting more touches than he liked, and the offense just could not sustain drives. So apologies for recommending McCoy this week. 4 players saw 6+ targets: Zay Jones, Charles Clay, Kelvin Benjamin, LaShawn McCoy. These are all just the names to kind of keep an eye on in case this offense does start clicking with any sort of regularity, but I don't expect it to. At this point, McCoy's the only one to even consider, and he's probably in timeout at best. Moving on to the Packers. This is one of the ugliest Rodgers games we've seen in a long time. He was 22 of 40, 298, 1-1, sacked twice, had a fumble that he lost. Knee seems to really be slowing him down and affecting him in a bad way, but he does have 2 decent matchups here before their bye week in the Lions and the 49ers, so he should still be a low QB1 for you, but the days of Rodgers just being your locked and loaded QB1 are
I'm just surprised they won't just let him sit for a couple weeks. They're going to eventually get him hurt because
he's still getting hit a lot.
a lot.
Yeah, he looked like he was moving around fine a little bit better this week, and he did practice earlier in the week, so I don't know that he's not getting any better, but he had some pretty critical things to say about McCarthy's play calling.
I love it.
In a game they won 22-0.
Yeah. Well, I guess he feels like they should have put up 45 points and 600 yards of offense against the Bills' defense.
There's
because
a
it's
lot of drops.
a non-playoff team. A lot of drops, but I think that he was also kind of upset about, the Devontae Adams usage, the way he was getting schemed, so we'll see how that goes.
All right. And we may just have watched Aaron Jones win this job. He went 5.9 yards per carry and 11 carries with a touchdown. Williams, on the other hand, was 11 for 27, most of it coming early and finished with 2.5 yards per carry. Based on what I saw, Jones is the one to start going forward. He looked way, way better than Williams did.
We'll see if McCarthy agrees.
Yeah, hopefully this doesn't turn into an ugly situation where one player is obviously better but doesn't get the work.
He will.
Looking at you, Detroit.
With no Cobb, targets were focused heavily on Adams, who got 14, and Allison got 11. So if Cobb continues to miss time and Allison can get out of the concussion protocol, both are must-starts going forward. Even they were both floor days on this one. Graham was pretty quiet, 321 and 1 on 6 targets, but he got you the touchdown, so that makes him a top half tight end 1 anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And the defense absolutely shut down the Bills in this one. So if it's a really nice matchup, the Packers are at least good enough to be startable. I wouldn't start them in anything even average, but
It's the Bills' offense. I really can't get excited. I'm glad they put up a 0, but
as we just saw in week 3,
I
doesn't
know.
always mean everything.
that's
so
because
they
the
did show
defense
up
created turnovers for short yards
and
But yes.
a lot of sacks. All right. Up next, Texans versus the Colts. This one went to overtime. Texans win 37-34.
For better or for worse.
Hold on.
You had one job, Dan.
I know.
One job.
There it is. All right.
I don't have stats in front of me either. So.
No,
I can't
I have my
help you.
notes pulled up, but not all the way scrolled down for you. Anyway, start with the Texans here. Deshaun Watson, another nice game, 29 of 42, 375, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, 28 yards on the ground. This is his 3rd straight game that he's thrown for over 300 yards and 2 scores. He gets the Cowboys and Bills for his next 2 weeks. Decent matchups. Watch the Fuller injury, but I think Watson is locked and loaded fine as a high-end QB stream. Moving forward, the news, I guess the kind of news here is the running back situation. Lamar Miller outtouched Blue 14-13, but Blue had 3 targets and no receptions and nulls. But the snap count, I guess, is the story here. It's looked to be more 50-50. 53% for Miller, 47% for Blue. This is the first time we've seen it this year, but Blue looked a little bit more effective, getting used in the passing game. What are we doing with Miller?
Well, Miller did get dinged up, they said. They didn't specify what the injury is, but he was dealing with something through the game.
Not a surprise. That happens about twice a year.
Yep. So, I mean, at this point, the offense is good enough, and there's not enough running backs. You're probably rolling Miller out as a flex, but you're not happy about it at this point. He has not shaped up how we were hoping. The volume hasn't been there quite as much, and just the offense in general has been extremely downfield pass focused.
Yeah. As for these downfield receivers, before Fuller went off with a hamstring injury, another touchdown, 5 targets, 4 for 49, and that touchdown. Hopkins had a Hopkins day, 10 for 169 and 1 on 12 targets. The name here to know is QQQT. 15 targets, 11 receptions, 109 yards. Most of those came after Fuller got hurt. But he's definitely worth the hold, as Fuller is known to miss time.
I actually had to start him someplace too, and I was not disappointed by that.
Yeah, it was amazing how well that worked out.
This is a great NFL debut for him. But definitely keep him on your watch list. You can probably pick him up in deep leagues, especially if Fuller is to miss time. There's there's some games to be won with him. Tight ends again did nothing, and so did the defense. A couple sacks, I believe, and a turnover. As for the Colts' offense, Andrew Luck finally had the game we were looking for. 40 completions, 62 attempts, 464 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. He did lose a fumble, and he gave you, I think, 13 yards on the ground. The shoulder doesn't look to be, a concern anymore. He had 6 passes that traveled over 20 yards in the air, and he has very good favorable matchups coming up at New England this Thursday night. Then he gets the Jets, Bills, and Oakland before seeing the Jaguars in Week 10. You can fire him up with very little concern.
My only concern is with Hilton now dinged up. It's like, and Doyle still on the ice.
I mean, Hilton was on and off the field. Hines got involved. They found ways to get production from Rodgers, from Grant, from their fucking backups.
They made it work, but I'm starting to get a little concerned about his weapons. And this Houston secondary is not good. So I'm not sure they'll be able to do it against every team.
Well, I don't expect him to throw the ball 62 times a game, but
I mean,
right.
Plus OT. It's just good to see from someone who's been a luck truther here. As for this running game, Wilkins led the team in carries, but just finished with 2 yards per carry, totaling 16 yards, had 1 target.
It was gross.
Even with Mack out, I don't think he can be rostered. He's 38 for 136 on the season. That's 3.6 yards per carry, and has only 8 targets in these 4 weeks. 3 games without Mack.
Yep.
Right.
And Hines has just been used so much in the passing game that insulates him.
And speaking of Hines, this is the second game he's had 9 or more targets. In the third game with at least 5 targets, he's scored 3 total touchdowns in 4 games. His catch rate's at 84.6%. He is basically the new Theo Riddick. He's not going to get, except he gets to work in the running game. While they don't have a clear-cut starting running back, and with how bad this defense is, I think Hines has got some floor considerations, especially with Mack out.
Hines looked like Duke Johnson did last year. It's going to be a better comparison. He's actually scoring touchdowns. He's being used significantly as a weapon. I don't know why.
I think Duke's bigger. That's why I think I use some more Theo.
Okay.
I think for size comparison wise. But yeah, it looks very good for him and those that have invested in him. As for the receivers here, when Hilton was on the field, 6 targets, 4 receptions, 115 yards, so he saved your day there. So keep an eye out on him. I think he left the field with multiple injuries.
So it's already been confirmed. There's almost 0 chance he plays this week. He might be back next week.
Okay. And then as for the other receivers, Rodgers, Grant, and something named Zach Pascal, whatever his name is. Pascal led them in targets, 10, 6 for 56, and that touchdown. Rodgers had 9, finishing his day. Rodgers had 11, he finishes at 8 for 85, and Grant finished with 5 for 64 and 7 targets. Obviously, Pascal is still very behind these guys in terms of snap count. With Hilton out, Grant Rodgers, I think, has some decent flex considerations. This is a beatable New England secondary.
Well, that's what we thought before Dolphins ran into him, so we'll see what happens.
I think Luck's a little bit better than
Tannehill.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I would think so.
I would hope so.
Anything else?
Tight ends, just Ebron. 5 for 40, 10 targets and touchdown. And then shout out to Inventary for breaking the field goal record.
Goat.
We got a question before we move on.
All right.
It was a trade question, Allen Robinson for Tyler Boyd.
I can't believe that's where we're at.
Asked if it was a good trade. And really, when you look at productivity, it's from a productivity standpoint, I get it. From an upside standpoint, I would hold Robinson more because his value should increase as the offense continues to go up to where you can get more, maybe Tyler Boyd plus for him, unless you can convince, I don't know if you're the Robinson owner or not, but unless you can convince them to believe in the upside.
I'd rather have the Robinson side just on name value alone because I think you can get more than Boyd.
Yeah, and I think that he'll eventually As this Bears offense continues to mesh, he'll be able to get more out of him than Boyd as well. So
and it's not like Robinson had a bad week either.
no, and I get
Very
it.
low usage.
I
that's
get
all.
it right now because the stat lines are similar, the production's similar. I just think that Robinson still has a higher ceiling.
I agree.
All right.
All right, Lions at the Cowboys next. Cowboys win on a last-second field goal to win 26-24.
All right, starting with the Lions. Matt Stafford was his normal self, 24-30, 307, 2 touchdowns, 3 straight weeks over 15 points since the week 1 dud. He's quarterback 11 in that span, so he's doing what he does every year. He's just quietly having a consistent season. Kerryon Johnson, LeGarrette Blount continue to split work for whatever reason. Kerryon Johnson saw only 9 touches, but he used them to go for 55 yards and a touchdown. Blount had 7 carries for 12 yards.
Woo.
Yeah, right. Theoretic 5 targets. Kerryon's a weekly flex consideration for me, and I can't put him higher because of the volume. He doesn't have the volume insulation.
No,
he's letting get rid of Blunt somehow.
He's like Philip Lindsay right now.
Yeah, so Ben Watson, if you could take care of LeGarrette Blount, we'd appreciate that.
Mafia Ben Watson. Yeah. They need to stop screwing around with giving Blount 7 carries a game so he can average under 2 yards and make it the Kerryon Johnson show. And I hope that they eventually start to do that. Otherwise, I'm going to have to put Jim Bob Cooter on my shit list. And I don't like Jim Bob Cooter being on my shit list.
I agree.
We like Jim Bob here. Golden Tate blew up 8 for 132 and 2. Galladay was 4-4 for 74 yards, while Jones was 3-6 for 56. This kind of played out exactly how we expected it, with Tate, Galladay having the better days. Jones was right on the edge of viable. So plus matchups, all 3 wide receivers you can run them out there. I think Tate and Galladay are pretty matchup proof. Jones did see more targets, but Galladay caught all of his.
Yeah, at this point, I mean, Tate seems to be playing out how I thought, where I thought he was going to be the best receiver to own here, and through 4 weeks, that looks to be the case. Just what's happened is Galladay is past Jones.
Yep. Tight ends for the Lions, not shockingly, did absolutely nothing.
Woo!
So there's that. Anything else on the Lions?
No.
All right, on to the Cowboys. Dak finally broke through against kind of a lackluster defense. He went 17-27, but he had his first 250-plus yard passing game since week 10 of last year. Also threw for multiple touchdowns. The 2 things I was harping on him for not doing for a while. Only 2 rush yards, however, which usually is the floor to his game. So he still remains a matchup-dependent kind of low-end stream as far as we're concerned, unless he can start stringing some of these games together. Or the rushing floor shows back up. Zeke was 25 for 152. He had no goal line carries this week or on the season, though, for whatever reason.
That's gross.
Yeah, that's nuts, right?
Part of it's the offense has not been on the goal line much.
They were this week, and he wasn't getting touches.
No, they were throwing it to tight ends.
They were throwing to tight ends
That's right, they
or
were.
whoever else in the end zone, and I don't really get it. You've got one of the best between the tackles runners in the league, and you're not utilizing him when you have the chance to score. That's the only thing about Zeke that's been concerning, though, is the goal line usage isn't there, and you hope that course corrects. And then as for the receive, this is an insane stat to me. Beasley, Gallup, Jeff Swaim, Allen Hurns, and the running backs, so Zeke and Rod Smith, all had 5 targets.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't get any more balanced than that, and all of your receivers plus your tight ends and your running backs all getting 5 targets.
And just low enough that you can't start any
And
of
that's
them.
why we apologize for
You can't start
figuring
any
out
of them.
this receiving core.
Swaim had the touchdown. Beasley caught 4 for 53. Gallup was 2 for 45. Nobody else was even remotely close to notable. And still, until somebody really separates themselves, you can't trust this. You can't trust where an offense that's throwing the ball 25 times and it's evenly split between 5 different position groups, and
Yeah, either Dak needs to start throwing 35 plus times a game, which I didn't expect to happen, or somebody needs to start getting 30+% of the target share.
Right. So there you go.
All right, let's move on to something that's a little more fun with a lot of scoring. Bengals at the Falcons. Bengals win this one on a last-second touchdown, 37-36. On the Bengals side, Dalton is now on pace for 4,800 yards and 44 touchdowns on the year on 628 attempts.
It's not even. That's like the 3rd most impressive quarter line stat through 4 games.
Oh no, there's
That's insane this season, and it's looked.
There are records that are on pace to be smashed this
by
year.
like multiple people.
He's been awesome through the first 4 games. He's currently moved up into that back-end quarterback 1 discussion week to week, and he has some awesome matchups coming up here. He's got the Dolphins next week, the Steelers, the Chiefs, the Buccaneers, and the Saints. In only 1 game, the Chiefs game is on the road.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. He's got more than just AJ Green to throw to. All right, now he finished 29-41, 337, 3-1 in this game. With him and with Green and Boyd catching targets from him, I love Andy Dalton right now. Gio gave you what you hoped for: 19 touchdowns, 19 touches, 2 touchdowns, 96 total yards. If Mixon's out, you're starting Gio. Basically, this offense is good enough to support at least one startable running back week to week, and possibly two, depending on how the carry load splits when Mixon comes back. Green had 8 targets, and Boyd had 15 to dominate this game. That was 23 at Dalton's 41 attempts. No one else had more than 4, and those were the running backs, Bernard and Walton. Eifert, Erickson, and tight end Eifert also had 4 before he destroyed his ankle. Erickson and Ross had just 2 targets each. Neither one is rosterable. We already mentioned drop John Ross a week or 2 ago, but he's for sure buy at this point. Don't chase the touchdown. On to the Falcons side, the Falcons defense has turned into a legit dumpster fire at this point, so they're going to be chasing points all year long. So with that, Ryan is on pace for a career year, including crushing his MVP season. He's on pace for 5,700 passing yards, 40 touchdowns, and just 8 interceptions. He was 419, 3-0 in this one on 39 attempts. He's been over 28 fantasy points in 3 straight games, and he gets the Steelers and the Bucks the next 2 weeks.
This is the same stat line on pace as Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, the two of them are
awesome.
Both of them plus Mahomes are going to break some records this year if shit keeps up.
Even Dalton.
Dalton's going to have a great year, but not a record-breaking year. Coleman got you 17 touches, but was only good for 77 yards, no touchdowns, and only 3 catches in that. So he kind of gave you a dud of a game. Ito Smith actually outproduced him, 48 yards, 10 touches, and he got into the end zone with a touchdown. So you might be seeing what Ito Smith is capable of next year when it's him and Freeman rocking in this backfield. So good call on us on that one. What?
I'm reading through your notes, and well, you'll see it when you get there.
Okay. Julio was somehow felt disappointing, even though he got 12 targets, goes off for 9 receptions, 173 yards. Still doesn't have a touchdown in the year, and didn't even see a single red zone target in this game. Expect him to continue being a high floor, pure yardage guy because the red zone targets are not there for him. Sanu was second in targets, 9 catching 6 for 111. If the defense is this bad, it even makes Sanu startable with all the volume they're getting, and Ridley continues to overachieve on his targets. Caught 4 of 6 for 54 and a touchdown. He was under 50% snap percentage in this year, so I think a bad game is incoming for him where he's not out there with as much as Sanu and Julio are. But I don't see how you can bench him.
That's how you just keep reading.
Oh, I see it. Okay. Just don't be surprised if he falls back to earth at some point, though they have the 2 good matchups here, so you're not benching him in those 2 games. Hopper gets a pathetic 2 targets, and I meant Hooper, but
Hopper. Terrible.
Just 2 targets.
I
for
can't
Hopper.
help it if I'm not getting the ball thrown my way.
He didn't separate much.
Matt Ryan he needs to trust me to go up over my defender and get it.
Sorry, he can't throw through the TV.
Basically, the 3-headed receiving monster at wide receiver has kind of capped the volume I was expecting to go to Hooper, so it kind of drags him down into the absolute pitiful mess that is the tight end position.
We had a question from Jimmy, by the way, if you're done.
All right.
It's a quick one. It's actually one we kind of just talked about, but I think he joined afterwards. Naeem Hines, I kind of replied to this in the chat already. He just wants to know how high we are on him if we love him this week without Hilton playing.
I think he's my 2nd or 3rd running back on my priority ads for
He'll be in
wire.
flex for rankings for sure.
Yeah, that's what I told him, is that we liked him as a high flex, and he could end up in a start of the week, at least consideration, when we actually do rankings.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go.
All right. We go from the fun game that ended on a last-second touchdown to the absolute ass-whooping of the week.
This was fun for me.
Bears beat the Bucks 48
It was slightly fun for me. Fucking Tariq Cohen.
This is real fun for me.
All right, we'll start with the dumpster fire that is the Bucks. Something went right for this team. Fitz got benched at halftime. He's done for the year. Winston's confirmed to play week 6. Go ahead and pick up Winston if you haven't already. As for the running backs here, I think even worse than what we saw from the quarterbacks. Ronald Jones led the team in carries in his season debut. Went 10 for 29, 2 targets, 1 drop, 1 reception for -1 yards. You can drop Barber in all leagues at this point. We've been saying it for the last couple weeks. Though he was more efficient, went 7 for 24. He only had 2 targets.
3.3 is efficient
For him, compared to Ronald Jones,
Right?
yeah, that's where we've gotten to at this point. You're not going to roster any Bucks running backs until someone finally emerges. If you want to take a dart shot on Jones, I guess you could.
Because we know what Barber is.
He's the most talented back in this backfield, but we'll see.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
We think.
Hard maybe.
We don't know shit, so maybe. As for the receivers here, Mike Evans had a downer of a game, but he still didn't kill you. Finished 6 for 59 on 9 targets. With Howard to miss 2 to 4 weeks, Nevin should be fine, even though Winston likes to evenly distribute his targets amongst his receiving course. Godwin sucked it up, though. 2 targets. I caught both of them just for 11th yards. He was 4th in snap count. Adam Humphries out-snapped him. I don't know if you want to drop him. I'm not ready to drop him yet, but that's because I'm super high on him. But if this continues to look the same after their bye next week in week 6 against the Falcons, maybe he is. Godwin.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. A lot of names, I know. Jackson got back to his wide receiver today. 8 targets, 5 receptions, 112 yards. I think he should be in the roster as long as he's healthy. Winston's going to push the ball downfield on him.
That was an ugly 100+ yards.
It was on one play, I think, to start the game for the Bucs.
No, it wasn't the start of the game. It was start of the second half.
Yeah, he had a big
He
play.
came out.
Was it the big play?
Yeah.
I thought Fitz hit him on a big play to start the game.
No, not that I recall.
Most of Winston's early work went to Humphries, but I do think he had a big play in the
I
third
think
quarter.
he had a big play in the third quarter.
Yeah.
That did most of it.
Either way, 8 targets, he's 2nd in snaps. Humphries, he finished 3rd in snaps, 7 targets, 6 receptions for 36 yards. I think it's just a name to monitor to see how his usage looks after their bye week. But I'm not excited with this stat line. It's just we're looking for volume. Mm-hmm. And in tight ends, with Howard gone for 2 to 4 weeks, you can roster Brait and hope.
You can probably start Brait, honestly, because
That's what I meant
Brait
to
with
say.
Jameis Winston works out really well.
And I'm going to recommend you never use the term roster Brait ever again.
I will be roster braiding all week long. Definitely
roster
braiding hard.
Thanks,
All right.
Nick.
All right, let's get to the boat race side, which was the
Are we going to
Bears.
roster Brait this one?
I was roster braiding to this one, yes.
That's for the Bears. Fantastic game for Trubisky. 19 to 26 for 354 yards, 6 touchdowns, no picks, 53 rushing yards. It's good to see him take advantage of a great matchup, and I'm very interested to see how the Bears utilize this offense, especially him moving forward. That they're going to open up the playbook even more for him and all that good stuff. Running backs here, very disappointed for Howard. Just as you thought he was getting it going after his 20-plus touches last week, he gets 11 carries and 1 target, finished with just 25 yards. This is the 3rd straight game that Howard has finished with under 3 yards per carry. And since the week 1 with him getting 5 targets, he's gone down on his targets every single week. What are we doing with Howard? Is he a buy low, sell high, or just
He's
a hold?
100% a buy low. This team is going to start running the ball more if this passing game can open up the running lanes.
Especially if they keep doing this with their defense.
I'm not quite sure what happened in the game script. Maybe there was something where they're just like, we can throw against this particular defense much better. And this has been a pretty good run defense this year and a terrible pass defense.
That was my note. The next one for Hull. Yeah,
so they may have just been attacking in a very particular way.
Right. And with Cohen in there, you have to you can't really stack the box just because he's so dynamic in the screen game. You can motion him outside. And with Howard improving his receiving, you can do a little bit of that, but he's still not quite as dynamic. So,
and I mean, just for their schedule coming up, they get the Dolphins, the Patriots, the Jets, the Bills, and the Lions for the next 5 games coming out of the bye week. The next defense that I might even be slightly concerned about, and after the last couple weeks, I'm not even sure anymore, is the Vikings. So
that's scary.
You may be able to get into December when they get the Rams before they have a defense that you're really scared of. So I want Howard.
Buy low and Jordan Howard. As we said, I think last Wednesday's episode when there was an in-season, he's an early season trade for candidate from Nick. Speaking of Tariq Cohen, though, he had a fantastic day, 174 total yards on 20 touches, and he scored that touchdown. Just nearly matched the touch total he had combined for the first 3 weeks. He had 21 touches. Pass catching backs have filled the Bucs all season, so it looked like that was what they were going for. I mean, you saw from Kamara, even guys like Connor and Clement had over 6 targets against them. So they found a way to beat them because they're not the easiest to get it going to, just through straight running backs.
And Nagy seems to be very, very particular in that he is going to attack a very specific part of the opponent's defense. So if you can spot an obvious weakness in the opponent's defense, that's kind of what I kind of learned from this game is you try to get whoever fits that role.
As long as they can execute on it, and we can, as the season goes on, we'll have a better idea how that's going to lay out and if that's actually what he's doing. But in this game, I also like that they started using Taylor Gabriel a bit more, how Taylor Gabriel should be used.
Agreed.
Moving on to the receivers. You guys just read all my notes. It's not even post them. You just read off what I wrote down.
Segue.
Just because of the low amount of passing attempts from Trubisky because the game was so well in hand. There wasn't a whole bunch of targets to go around, but Gabriel caught all 7 of his, 104 and 2. He was used far more than just a screen guy, as Hopper just alluded to, as what we've seen. He's definitely a waiver claim, and this is the 3rd game in a row that he's seen 7+ targets. He needs to be rostered, and now that they finally used the way that we want him to be used,
Yeah, the volume was there. He just needed to start working it downfield instead of in the backfield because he's straight line speed more than he is shifty.
Yeah, this is the first game where they actually used Cone and Gabriel correctly, so that was fun to see.
And both.
It was
and
a
at the same
lot of
time.
fun.
It was a lot of fun. As for Robinson, 4 targets, 2 receptions, 23 yards. The touchdown salvage this day, I know it wasn't great. It looked like it should have been a great matchup for him. It's just game script. That's how it went down. This is a throwaway game. It's something that you should be excited even as a Robinson owner that this offense is starting to get it going and clicking. Should be a lot more for him. Then Josh Bellamy didn't drop a touchdown.
No, he caught one. He caught one.
He caught his own target.
Somehow.
No, he didn't
20
drop
yards.
I know.
He didn't drop it. It's amazing.
It's weird.
Trey Burton, just like Robinson, only 4 targets, caught 2 of his. Still, his were for big plays. I think he had totaled 86 yards
And a tutter.
and a tutter to save to give himself a high title.
I was hoping to see more volume out of it, but he did fine. So
Bears defense still good.
Defense is elite. They don't have their next toughest matchup, and I say toughest, I say it with in quotes, Lions week 10, but they're at home.
yeah, I mean
That's a tough stretch after that game, but there's still a lot to
they
know.
got the Patriots before that.
They do.
I must have glossed over it.
Yeah,
Or I just don't really care about their offense that
Their
much.
next 3 weeks somehow are AFC East opponents after the bye.
no, next 4.
Next 4.
Yeah,
So all 4 of their games.
they come off the bye and then they do Dolphins, Patriots, Jets, Bills.
Yep. 2 of those are at home. 2 of them are away.
Just kidding then. But still.
Yep. We had another question before we... Are you done?
Yeah,
Well, I'm done.
We had another question before we move on. It was Hines over Burita, half PPR, or Hines over Burita, full PPR.
Rest of season?
That's what I asked. I didn't get an answer yet. I think it's rest of season, though.
still Breida
Read the rest of
because
season Hines this week.
I think
Yes.
Hines drops as soon as Mac's back.
That's where I'm at. It's Burita rest of season and Hines this week.
Yeah, agreed.
I doubt Mac is ready to play.
However,
Thursday.
rest of season will adjust as, accordingly.
we adjust as we get new information.
Right. So keep watching.
All right, moving on to Eagles versus the Titans, our second overtime game that we had this week. Titans win this one on a touchdown to Corey Davis with less than 2 minutes left in the game, win 26-23. Hopper?
Starting with the Eagles. Wentz looks like he's fully back. 33 of 50, 348, and 2 8 yards on the ground. So that was good to see. He comeback trail complete. Jay Ajayi, 18 touches for 81 total yards, giving you an okay day as we expected. Smallwood had 10 touches for 54 total yards. With no Clement or Sproles, this just kind of continues to be a matchup situation and an injury situation week to week for this backfield.
So Ajayi is turning into a slightly worse McCoy because I saw him leave this game injured like 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes he leaves for good. He doesn't always come back like McCoy does. So Ajayi's frustrating as hell. And
That means you trade him.
yeah, I like
Just
trading
get off that train.
him.
you can.
If you can,
Yeah.
if you can rid yourself of the headache and get good value for him, I recommend doing so.
I think he's the most volume insulated of these running backs.
but he's the
pretty
least
easily,
injury insulated.
But he's the least. Well, I don't know. Sproles has been pretty bad too lately.
I'm not even counting Sproles anymore. He played 1 game.
Yeah, and Clement's beat up, so they're all banged up except for Wendell Smallwood.
Until Smallwood does.
Right. Concerns about Jeffrey, you should probably put those to rest. He caught 8 of his 9 targets for 105 yards and a touchdown. Aguilar had 12 targets. He didn't do a whole lot with them in this one, though. Aguilar with Alshon back in the mix goes back into flex consideration for me. I mean, the target volume is nice to see.
Especially with the lack of a running game, you're going to probably see more downfield throws.
Yeah, I just like to see him do more with those, with those targets.
Now, the Eagles' schedule, not amazing. Vikings, Giants, Panthers, which is pretty decent to pass on.
Yeah, Vikings look like they have been too here lately.
I was going to say, I haven't heard a bad matchup yet.
Jaguars,
Okay, that's a bad matchup.
Cowboys,
That's
Is that what
not
the Lions
ideal,
said,
but
so-
not the worst.
And then they get the Saints, which is probably the first boat race type game.
Yeah, I don't know.
Which, maybe the Vikings.
That any of those are necessarily terrible. I mean, name cachet, sure, but from what we've seen here recently,
I'd be happy to fire up my Eagles against
it's just
the Vikings.
me taking shots at the Vikings right now, actually.
As you want to do.
Yeah. Ertz, 14 targets, interceptions, 112 yards. No analysis needed there. It's Zach Ertz with Carson Wentz.
Yeah, Ertz plus Wentz equals marriage in heaven.
Yep. We'll talk about the defense in a second. I want to bridge into the Titans and Mariota first. So Marcus Mariota, he gave you maybe his best game ever, and definitely his best since 2016. He went 30 of 43 for 344, 2 touchdowns and a pick, 46 yards on the ground and another touchdown there. Eagles are giving up 35-plus point days to Fitzpatrick, who was Fitzmagic at that point in time, and Mariota, but they held Luck and Ryan to 15 and 13 respectively. Is this Mariota stepping up, or is this the Eagles' defense, specifically the secondary, being worse than we thought? Because the run defense looked fine, but the secondary looked pretty bad, and has twice this year out of 4 games now.
Yeah, pass defense is definitely worse than we thought. So I'm not gonna love Cousins next week. Like, he's not gonna be top 5 for me, but I'm still starting Cousins next week.
Right. Titans did have their offensive line at full strength, but I think they have to rely on the pass rush, not the secondary here.
And the line for the Titans looked awesome in this game.
It did. And if they continue to look that way, then Mariota is going to step right back into streaming conversation like he was at the beginning of the year. But we'll see. But right now, I tend to think that 15 and 13 point games are still okay. You're not thrilled with them, but you're not pissed off that they happened. Mm-hmm. So I do think the Seagull secondary is worse than we thought. As for the running game, Deion Lewis, the running game. Oh, wait, face the camera. Running game.
Run through the air.
Yeah. Deion Lewis caught 9 balls for 66 yards with no rushing attempts. And as expected, Henry did nothing on the ground, 8 for 24. Henry has no touchdowns, no games over 3.5 yards in attempt. He's a running back 51 currently. What are we doing with him?
Traded him to somebody that still believes in him. Otherwise, drop him.
Is he churnable? I mean, I don't know that there's a whole lot better out there, but do you hold in hope because you put draft capital in him, or do you just churn him?
Hopefully you didn't.
If you listen to this show, you didn't put draft capital in him.
Should not own him anywhere.
I agree, but people did.
So if you're just joining the show now and didn't listen to us during draft season and you drafted Henry, I apologize. I will try to get you out of this mess. I would definitely kick every single tire and see if you can swing.
Throw him in any
try
2-1, 3-2 games.
Yeah, try to do like
anything.
Henry plus and go try to get Howard or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
find somebody that hasn't performed either that at least has a chance.
Yeah, take Henry, your second best receiver, and go try to get Howard
right now.
Good
while
call.
You're watching this show.
All right, wide receivers, Corey Davis, 15 targets, 9 receptions for 161 yards and a touchdown, and an absolute breakout game for him.
Good.
He's been solid all year in that wide receiver 2-3 range. He finally flashed the upside.
He leads the league in target percentage right now.
Yeah, he just finally produced with them.
Yep. But yeah, if you're getting that type of volume, good shit tends to happen. So
as long as Mariota's healthy.
Well, and he was drafted as your wide receiver 2 or 3 also. So
yep,
you're pretty okay with that.
Oh yeah.
And then Taywan Taylor, 9 targets, 7 receptions, 77 yards. He should be rostered. I'm not saying run out there and start him right away, but he should definitely be rostered at this point.
He's 100% rosterable, and he's a borderline flex play.
Yes.
He's their new Richard Matthews.
Yep. We'll see if it keeps happening going forward. But this is a guy that's got speed out of the slot that we liked a lot coming out of college. So, and he's finally getting the volume to support that, especially with Richard Matthews not there. So, 100% rosterable to me as well. Jonnu Smith, another goose egg. Stream's pretty dead for right now.
Yeah, it's dead for 2018. If you're in a deep dynasty league, go see if the owner's heartbroken right now and see if you can buy him for cheap. Because if you can get him for just a
third round pick.
Yeah, like a 3rd or 4th round pick right now, if the owner's just really heartbroken and you can stash him and you have the roster spot, go ahead and do it because we may see more in this 3rd or 4th year.
And hey, before we move on, we got another question.
All right.
Both Corey Davis and TJ. This one comes from Kayvon. Both Corey Davis and TJ Yeldon are available on his waiver wire. If you had to choose one for the next few weeks, who do you go with?
Davis.
That's not even a question. It's Corey Davis.
I know that Fournette's hurt. If you can pick up both, honestly.
Yeah, you put in a claim for both.
Yeah.
If
it's fab, then you put in
Almost all your money on Davis.
I would just put in all your money. Yes.
Yeah.
Davis is leading the league in targets, like we just talked about. He's getting 10 plus a game, which is, to put that into perspective, that's last year DeAndre Hopkins levels.
How the fuck is he on the waivers?
I have no idea.
Yeah, if you can roster them both, I would try to roster them both. But what you're getting out of Corey Davis is you're getting a guy you can run out there season long, whereas Yeldon's only viable until Fournette's back.
Which, at this rate, may be the whole season.
We'll see.
I don't want to talk about it.
But
Corey Davis, unless he gets hurt, you're guaranteed volume there.
That's an easy question there.
Yeah.
All right. Let's finish up our last game of the noon game so we can review a beer here. I am almost out. Jets at the Jaguars. Jaguars win this one 31-12. Going to be real fast on the Jets side where the offense struggled as expected. Darnold was completed just 50% of his passes, 4.9 yards an attempt, 167 yards and a touchdown.
You keep talking.
You need a bottle opener, though.
Oh, I do. But I was showing
167 yards and a touchdown. I do expect him to continue to improve when he gets better matchups. This is not one of them, though. Running game was a complete disaster. 34 total yards on 14 attempts. Crowell being the absolute low light here. Four attempts, 0 yards. Powell saved his day from being a complete write-off in PPR. He's 4 for 26 in the passing game. At this point, I think Crowell was basically saving his day with touchdowns. Unless he gets a better share of this running game, I'm not interested in Crowell at this point. He's on my bench. Pryor can be left for dead after kind of an interesting start to the season. 1 target. Anderson saw 6, 2 for 12. Anun was the only one worth anything at this point. He was 4 for 66 and 8 targets. Rest of the passing game can be dropped in any 12-team league with regular-sized benches or lower.
Yeah.
All right. Is there something you want to chime in with, Hopper?
Huh?
No,
You're
my
like-
stepdad gave us a shout out.
I was just, I knew that it was family, so I was pointing it out to him. That's
Yeah.
I know his stepdad.
Yeah.
On the Jaguar side, Bortles gave you a very solid game. He's over 10 yards per attempt, 388 total yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. So he's been awesome in even weeks. He's been terrible in odd weeks.
Great schedule coming up, though.
But he gets the Chiefs in week 5, so he can probably break the odd week curse here.
And no Fournette.
Probably.
Who was it that did the odd even week thing last? Oh, it was
Jared McKinnon.
Jared McKinnon that did this last year.
And now you're on the Amari Cooper doing the same thing.
Yep, Mark Cooper's doing the exact same thing.
Odd evens.
Bortles is at 18.2 fantasy points per game this year, so he's gotten pace for a nice year this overall season. He may be able to push for that back in QB1 like he likes to do so much.
I love him.
Fournette was horribly disappointing before he got hurt again. Went 35 yards on 12 touches before re-injuring himself. So if you still have Yeldon, you may have a starter for a few more weeks. He went 100 yards on 21 touches and a touchdown, and he'd for sure be an RB2 against the Chiefs next week, which if Fournette misses, which I fully expect him to. Corey Grant has 3 touches and can be safely ignored.
Against the Chiefs?
Yes.
I like him without Fournette.
You guys are way too obsessed with Corey Grant.
Okay, first off,
the Chiefs have been a lot worse against pass catching backs.
And Yeldon is a really good pass catching back.
But that doesn't mean Corey Grant's not going to.
It depends who gets to start. Depends, because the backup running back has done really well for Jacksonville. When Yeldon started, it was Corey Grant.
That is a weird
weird-ass
association. He's saying whoever the starter is has not done
I
well.
It's more of a
that,
joke, but it's been the truth, though. I mean, Grant got to start against New England or against Titans, and Yeldon had the better day. Yeldon got to start against Week 3 against the Patriots. Corey Grant had the better day. I'm just saying.
All right.
I'm just saying I'm not ignoring Corey Grant. I'm not saying
I'm not
starting
either.
Corey Grant against. Well, I will because there's some deep leagues where that's going to be viable for me, like 16-team dynasty leagues. But
I mean, when bye weeks come into play, you're starting anybody with a pulse who's going to get snaps.
Right.
We're masochists.
Are you alive?
All you at home, I do not recommend you play in these leagues unless you're a glutton for pain.
All the pain.
All right. For the passing game, they decided that they really wanted to feed D.D. Westbrook in this game. He looked great doing it, though. 13 targets. No one else had more than 5. Turned it into a 930 stat line. Could he be taking over as the true number 1?
You know, I kind of called this in preseason when you analyzed what Keelan Cole and D.D. Westbrook did, and when with Marquise Lee and Allen Hurns hurt last year, that D.D. Westbrook, when he was healthy, is the one who sustained target volume. He's also a matchup nightmare because he's a guy with speed that's an excellent route runner coming out of the slot, which is typically where your third best cornerback is. So I do tend to, and I said this in pre-draft process too, I do tend to like D.D. Westbrook more than Keelan Cole or Dante Moncrief. I'm still a believer in Cole too, but I wouldn't be surprised if that is what's happening.
Yep. Moncrief ended up actually being the highest score, but he did that with a 67-yard touchdown and run, which I think that's the longest I've ever seen Dante Moncrief run in my life. It's kind of a weird thing. He went 5 for 109 and 1 on his 5 targets. Cole and ASJ were very quiet in this one. ASJ is normal self without scoring a touchdown. Cole saw just 3 targets, though. He went 2, 15, and 0. Is there any concerns off of that stat line?
Cole hasn't given you a blow up. And
outside of the one game.
Yeah. Well, was that even... Oh, okay, it was kind of a blow up. But still, yes. It is concerning to me, and it's just because with Jacksonville, you don't really have somebody that's settled in. Is that top volume getter. But it just means to me that Keelan Cole is not somebody you can start weekly. You're going to have to look at matchups, and even then, I'm looking at Westbrook first.
Yeah, especially 13-3 is a pretty massive target discrepancy there.
Yeah, it is.
All right. Defense gave you a worse day than you hoped, but you'll live with these performances because it's still the Jaguars.
Yep.
Let's review a beer.
We shall.
Beer review.
Are you making sure they taste the same?
No, I didn't actually need the second one yet. But Dan's like, "Oh, you want a beer?"
That's what I assume you were pointing me over
my
my
laptop screen. So I feel like I got to drink them both now.
All right. Well, since you've drank them too, you have a better expertise than the rest of us. What do you think?
Refreshing?
No, the pumpkin definitely hits you on definitely hits you on the nose. You get some of that like cinnamon nutmeg spice like you'd expect out of pumpkin ales. It kind of leaves your mouth kind of semi-dry, which is a little bit of almost a little bit of hoppiness coming through there. So it's a very solid drinker. I've had some pumpkin ales that I do like a little bit more than this, but it's still pretty solid.
Yeah, I especially like that it's based on a brown, which by the way, they do not brew enough brown ales in general. It's something that's underappreciated.
I agree.
I like it because it's not a lot of hoppy, but it gets a lot of that malty flavor to them. So I'm a big fan of brown ales. Similar with reds, and there's not enough with either one. There's way too many IPAs out there.
Yeah, the only hoppiness I get really is the mouth dryness.
Yeah, it's more of a dry than a hop.
Yeah.
That's good.
All right. Back to Dan reviews.
Review. I mean, there's not a whole lot else you can say about this one, though.
Exactly.
So that's Punkin Ale by Dogfish Head. If you are anywhere on the east side of the Mississippi, you can probably go ahead and check those guys out.
What you said was perfection. I think that's how Chris Thompson put it.
All right. Well, let's hit our afternoon games here so Dan can get out of here. We got Saints at the Giants. Saints win this one 33-18. Hopper, you've got this game.
Sorry, I was responding to a beer comment.
Brr.
I was told it was the only good pumpkin beer on the market, which we've got some stuff down here from like Big Muddy and some other regional breweries that I like a lot. So
Southern Tier?
Yeah, Southern Tier, Big Muddy, some things like that. Anyway, Saints Giants. Let's start with the Saints. Breeze was a game manager in this one, which happens when the defense plays well. It was 18 for 32, 217, closing parentheses and touchdowns. That should have been a 0, I think. What should have been a plus matchup. But the running game played well, the defense played well, and this is the type of game script that when Dan and I were talking about Breeze a lot preseason and on completely opposite ends of the spectrum, this is what I was afraid of. So if you remember last year, the defense really didn't turn it on until week 3 or 4 in the season. It was against the Giants. They've been kind of streaky. So this is something that I'm at least keeping an eye on going forward, especially with Mark Ingram coming back.
No, I agree.
Speaking the aforementioned Alvin Kamara, though, 19 for 134, 3 touchdowns, another 5 for 47 through the air. He did all of the heavy lifting in this one. So what is the impact on Ingram coming back? Is it more what we saw last year?
Yes, less touches for Kamara. They want to make a deep playoff run, and they're probably going to try to keep him as fresh as they can.
He's not going to see 24 touches after this game.
And,
no, he'll still see plenty of receiving work.
And yeah, he's on.
Oh yeah,
he's on pace to break the reception record, I still believe.
Yeah.
So yeah, expect good things out of Kamara still, but not 36 points most weeks.
Yeah, Ingram's going to be a viable running back too.
At worst.
He's
At
going to have
worst.
some one games
when he
too.
comes in.
Oh, yeah.
Not really related to anything, but I was surprised by this. Dwayne The Rock Washington is alive and apparently in New Orleans.
And as soon as they activate Ingram, he may not be.
He may not be, but
Him and Mike Ellis.
he had 2 carries. I didn't know he was still in the league. Cam Meredith and Michael Thomas each had 4 targets, game script mostly. But is Cam Meredith finally integrated and startable? He saw more than Ted Ginn.
I would.
Well, not startable, but integrated and rosterable. Let's put it that way.
Roster-
You should put
yes.
him on their roster. Yes.
Startable now.
Okay. You'll probably get some high volume games or games that look like they're going to be shootouts where he'll be a viable start. So that's why he's rosterable. Just to clarify.
Like when they play the Falcons.
Yep. Josh Hill was your
Vikings
leading
again.
tight end and wide receiver, catching 3 of 3 for 63 yards
Gross.
over Ben Watson. So Josh Hill flashed some last year too. You'll just occasionally you'll get a game where Josh Hill's relevant, and it's not predictable when that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And on to the Giants. Eli Manning was 31 of 41, 255, and a touchdown. Saints defense came to play in this one, and they covered really well, especially when the offense was kind of scuffling.
And Eli was just straight missing people on some of his throws. What was the stat you saw, Dan, where Odell is leading the league in uncatchable targets?
Yeah, he had 24 uncatchable targets through
4 weeks.
4 games.
Nice.
And he hasn't had a drop yet this year. He's basically seeing what Alshon Jeffrey had to start the season last year.
Yeah. So just that's something to keep an eye on a bit, because this should have been a plus matchup at home against the passing defense that hadn't been great, and he was off. So we really got to see what's true here. Are the Giants streaky, or did the Saints defense decide they want to be good again?
It's Eli. We know the Giants are streaky.
True. Saquon Barkley showed you why he's game script proof. It was only 10 for 44 on the ground. He did have a touchdown, but 8 targets, 6 receptions, 56 yards through the air. So, I mean, he one way or another, be it the 14 receptions in the receiving game or on the ground, a touchdown, whatever, he will find a way to get it done. So
No, he
will find a way to kill you.
He is a top 6 running back at this point.
If you're playing against
strictly on volume alone.
Yeah.
Yep. Sterling Shepard was 10 for 77 and a touchdown. So hopefully you listen to us on that one. That is one thing that we did get right this week. Ingram's absence is expected to last a couple more weeks. Shepard should remain startable through that. Odell caught 11 of 7. Oh, sorry, 7 of 11. First, I really got to start writing these stats the other way. 7 of 11. He got 11 balls on only 7 targets.
He's that amazing.
That's Nick Vannett catch rate levels.
That's right, over 100%.
7 receptions on 11 targets for 60 yards. No touchdowns through 4 games.
It'll correct. I'm not worried about it. He's still looked awesome.
I think it will too. He has looked good. I went back and looked at the stat lines because I'm like, wait, it's kind of been quiet, but his stat lines aren't bad. He's just not getting touchdowns.
Yeah,
Just missing that touchdown.
If he had 2 touchdowns at this point, no one would give a shit.
Nope. Red Ellison, standard tight end line, 3 of 5 for 29 yards
And no touchdown.
and no touchdowns. Yeah, standard tight end line.
All right. For everyone who predicted the barn burner of the week being Browns versus the Raiders, congratulations, you get a cookie. This one went to overtime. Raiders win 45-42. On the Browns side, I never thought I'd see a day where I'd be disappointed in Mayfield where they put up 42 points. Barely 50% as a passer. Went 295, 2-2 on 41 attempts with 2 fumbles. Next 2 weeks are tough, but you're holding tight. Then you get an exciting week 7 to 10 where he gets the Bucs, Steelers, Chiefs, and Falcons all in a row. On the running back side, Carlos Hyde got 22 touches, 82 yards and a touchdown, but he got outbeat by Nick Chubb, who had 3 touches.
Yeah, who killed you?
Nick Chubb went 105 yards and 2 touchdowns on 3 carries in this game.
I love it.
So how long before Hugh Jackson starts feeding Chubb the rock more?
Probably never.
Never.
Because it's Hugh Jackson,
So when he's fired.
which
Yeah.
needs to happen.
All right. Duke had a solid but unspectacular day. 6 touches for 56 yards. Hopefully this is kind of a trend in the right direction for him. He needs to be used more, especially in the passing game. The rest of the passing game, though, complete mess. 10 targets for Landry. He went 4, 34, and 1, which is just, if it wasn't for the touchdown, it'd be a terrible stat line for him. Callaway had 9 targets, caught 3 for 54.
This has kind of been Callaway's thing this week, though, and I'll talk more about it, or this year, though. I'll talk more about it later. He's getting target volume.
Yeah, just not
hasn't
converting.
converted it yet.
Njoku, third, 7, got 5, 52, and 0, so that's actually decent for a tight end who didn't score a touchdown.
Back in tight end 1.
And then Higgins was 5 targets, 461-0. So hopefully this efficiency can tighten up, especially with Landry and Callaway. That's way too many targets for such little production from the two of them.
Especially against a bad pass defense.
And I think this might be our last apology, but we apologize for the defense. 3 sacks, 2 picks should have insulated the floor, but instead they decided to give up 45 points and 550 yards to still give you a negative.
They looked good the first half, and then one bad call would have turned away a sack fumble for a touchdown, too.
Well, it happens.
Yep.
On the Raiders side, if it wasn't for the picks, this would easily have been the best game of Carr's career. He went 437 yards, 4 and 2 on 58 attempts. Still don't like him as an every week starter, but he's now kind of inserted himself into that streamer level conversation.
2 good weeks in a row.
Yep.
It is. Lynch absolutely crushed the Browns. 157 yards on 23 touches, 6.5 yards per carry. If he'd gotten into the end zone, people would have been raving about this performance from him. As the season's gone on, he seems to look better and better, and it seems like they're figuring out how to use him. So Gruden's offense is looking better.
The fact that he got 23 touches was what I really liked about this, because there were never questions last year about his efficiency or what he was doing with his touches.
It was why was he only getting 12?
Peripheral looked good. He was just only getting 12. If he's around the 20 touch mark, he's in the back end RB1, high end RB2 conversation most weeks.
And Martin and Richard barely touched the ball, so don't even worry about them.
That's how it should work.
This is the Lynch show. Passing game was heavy on the volume. Cook led with 13 targets, going 8 for 110 and 2. I'm assuming unless Kelsey blows up, that is your tight end 1 finish this week. Cooper got you 12, finishing 828 and 1. So he's at this point, is he just a locked-in wide receiver 3 with upside most matchups?
That's how you have to view him.
He might be a locked-in wide receiver 2.
He's had 2 duds and 2 good games. So
give me another week and he'll get there. Right now he's high in 3.
All right. Nelson and Bryant were 8 and 7 targets respectively. Both went for about 50 yards. Nelson got the touchdowns. How do we feel about these two going forward?
I don't.
You don't feel?
I don't.
Sociopath, sorry.
No feels.
All right. Well, Dan, you got the Seahawks at the Cardinals. Seahawks win 20-17.
All right, we'll start with the Seahawks here. Wilson gave you a rough day, 1926, 172, no touchdowns, no picks, only 21 yards on the ground. But as we've seen from other offenses to start the season, you attack the Cardinals on the ground, and that's just what they did. Just don't expect this from Wilson on a weekly basis, but he is known to start out pretty slow. They get the Raiders and Lions coming up next after his matchup next week against the Rams. As for these running backs, with Chris Carson with the surprise inactive, it was Mike Davis, not Rashad Penny. They got the starter. Davis, 25 total touches, 124 yards, and a touchdown. I think Carson is still kind of the starter, but we don't really know about Pete Carroll. He likes to throw these little fucking wrenches in there. So
yeah, he said that Davis will be involved from here on out.
Just what we do know is that Davis, not Penny, is the RB2 on this on this team.
We do know that. We don't know if he's being truthful or lying. It could be Davis is going to be involved, as in Davis gets 3 touches every week.
Yep.
Yeah, and he's the main pass catching back. I think that stayed true.
But at this point, I would not trust Penny unless somebody took both Davis and Carson out behind the woodshed.
Penny is about as useful as a Penny right now.
Yeah, 9 for 49, but he's the RB3. You can drop.
That's just my 2 cents.
You can drop him. I think he's still worth less than 2 cents. As for receivers here, everyone's day was pretty meh. Lockett and Baldwin put up nearly identical numbers. Both had 5 receptions. Lockett had 53 yards. Baldwin had 41. Baldwin had 7 targets. Lockett got 6. No one else did shit. Marshall had 3 targets, only 1 reception. He should already be dropped.
Yep. There's rumors that Marshall's going to start losing snaps to David Moore.
It looks like David Moore is going to take over.
That's Moore's first name. We couldn't figure it out.
David Moore. That's why we kept saying Chris, but that's wrong.
No, I kept saying Sterling, and I'm like, this is the wrong generation for that.
As for this tight end situation, with Disley out for the season now, looks like Nick Vannett is going to carve out some more playing time, but let's see if he can actually make some work of it, because 2 targets, 1 reception. So he's get it done.
He's the last man standing until Dixon's back in week 8.
And I know there's people out there that are getting excited because the defense has put up a 3rd straight good game, but they get the Rams, Oakland, and Detroit.
So awful enough.
We don't know about Oakland.
Bad.
We do not know about Oakland yet.
Yeah, awful, pretty bad, and
might
terrible.
Be bad and really bad.
Yeah, not good. As for the Cardinals here, Rosen had him a rookie game. He actually outproduced Wilson, 15 of 27, 180 and 1. Just like the Cardinals decided to go through David Johnson, as they probably should and should keep doing forward. So we're not going to obviously roster Rosen, but at least hopefully he can kind of make guys like Fitz and Kurt rosterable. Speaking of David Johnson, It looked like the bell call that we all know and love. 25 total touches, 112 total yards, and a touchdown. The ceiling isn't as high as it used to be, but the floor should still be there with the amount of work that he should be getting.
Yeah, the offense has cut the ceiling in half, but even that's still viable.
Yeah, he got, I think, 6 targets in this game, so hopefully that trend continues. This is the second straight week that Christian Kirk is out-targeted and outproduced Larry Fitz. And this is also Fitz's third straight game with the dud. He's only had 12 targets these last 3 games, 9 receptions during that time, and no game's gone over 30 yards. What are we doing with Fitz?
Timeout.
Timeout.
Real heavy timeout, and Kirk should be rostered.
Okay. On the Kirk, he's got 7 targets this game, 16 targets in the last 2 games. Definitely should be rostered, and then even has some flex considerations during these bye weeks, but not too much. Then Chad Williams got a touchdown, but don't roster him.
Yay.
And just like Ricky Seals-Jones, he didn't get a touchdown, but he should not be rostered. 7 targets in his last 2 games, 19 total targets on the season.
I mean, with how many injuries at this point, you may have to.
He had 3 targets, I think, in 2 games. Or the 7 targets in 2 games, pretty hard to trust. He's not even getting the volume. That's
Yeah,
it.
I mean, 10's the standard for tight ends over 2 games. Come on, Nick.
All right, anything else on the Cardinals?
No.
All right, 49ers at the Chargers. Chargers win this one in a close one. 29-27 did not cover. Hopper, what happened with the 49ers?
Well, let's start with the 49ers. CJ Beathard, 23 at 37, 298, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Not a terrible day. This is about his ceiling that he showed you last year, and it actually supported some fantasy production. So he could be a plus matchup streamer, especially as we come through bye weeks to just keep an eye on. I mean, he wasn't your typical dud. He does have starting experience. He is only a second-year quarterback also. And it's his second year in the system. So I'm not going to turn on the hype train on CJ Beathard, but I don't think it kills things as much as we thought, and he could be in streamer consideration later on.
And at this point, the Chargers without Nick Bosa do not look like the same defense we expected.
Joey
Bosa.
Yeah, Nick's still at Ohio State.
Sorry, wrong Bosa.
Wrong Bosa. Matt Breida and Alfred Morris were both pretty meh. Bye, Dan. Breida had 12 touches.
Say goodbye, live studio audience, to Dan.
Yeah. She's actually downstairs. Breida and Morris both pretty meh. Breida had 12 touches for 71 total yards. Morris had 18 total yards. Breida is still a weekly flex option given that volume. Goodwin left hurt mid-game. Garcon, however, 7 targets, 4 receptions, 52 yards. He should be owned and just watched. With CJ Beathard, you're not going to see as much downfield stuff to Goodwin. Garcon's more the possession route runner type.
Yep.
So at least watch him. And then George Kittle doesn't give a damn who's throwing him the football. 8 targets, 6 receptions, 125 yards, touchdown, 82-yard bomb in that. He's a must start.
At this point,
he has to be.
Yeah, who called Kittle and Cook being top 7-ish tight ends this year?
I think Kittle was like my 8 when I started rankings until the injury. So that was close. Not on Cook, though.
Yeah, we all missed on Cook.
And for the Chargers, let's just run through this real quick since Dan's not here. Conversation's going to be less. Rivers, 25-39, 250 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. He kind of did what you expected in this one.
Yep, I hope for more, but I wasn't disappointed.
Yeah, he gave you a fine start. Melvin Gordon was also as advertised, 15 for 104 on the ground, 7 to 55 and a touchdown through the air. Eckler continues to be worth a flex start in plus matchups, as we mentioned last week. 8 for 25 on the ground, 3 targets, 2 receptions for 31 and a touchdown. He again gets a lot of his work when the Chargers are leading, but if it's a good game script for them, he's definitely flexible.
Yeah. My only concern at this point is just the fact that so many of the targets and the volume is going through the running backs. So it kind of limits the receivers a little bit.
Well, in this one too, but I mean, from the way the game unfolded, it ended close, but they did have a lead for most of this. So they weren't really having to force the ball downfield. And actually, a note on that coming up. So since you bridged me into wide receivers were pretty meh in this one. Keenan Allen did have 10 targets, which is about what you'd expect. He caught 7 of them for 63 yards, no touchdowns. So that's kind of his floor. You don't hate that, but you don't love it. Mike Williams, on the other hand, only had 3 targets as the game script wasn't in his favor. So my question is he matchup dependent? And just to support that, in the 2 losses this year, he's had 13 targets, 9 receptions, 162 yards and 2 touchdowns. That was against the Rams in Kansas City when the Chargers were playing from behind. Mm-hmm. In the 2 wins this year, he's had 5 targets, 3 receptions, 42 yards, and 1 touchdown. So is he dependent on game script?
At least in this point. He may grow into a bigger role as the season goes on, but at the moment, you're probably looking for games where the Chargers are at least having to put up a lot of points.
Right. They're gonna have to throw the football, where they're not gonna be able to kind of sit there, because I know it's only 4 games, small sample size. That's a pretty decided split.
So yeah, unfortunately, outside of maybe, unless you think the Raiders are a top tier offense all of a sudden, outside of maybe the Titans here in 3 weeks, I don't see a lot of matchups where I'm like, yes, I'm really excited to go out and start them. No. They don't get the Chiefs again until December, and they get the Bengals the week before that.
Right. And Gates did have 1 touchdown on 5 targets, standardly. Or it's tight end standard. 1 touchdown, 5 targets. Ravens Steelers, Nick.
All right. Ravens win this one 26-14, and I'm going to rock this one solo, I guess. Flacco has gone for 360 plus with 2 touchdowns in 2 of his last 3 games. He is now firmly in streamer status with players like Carr, Eli, where you're looking for plus matchups for him. This passing offense is the best we've seen out of the Ravens in at least a few years. On the running game, Allen and Collins continue their weird split. Exactly 12 touches for both, 45 yards for Collins, 47 for Allen. Collins got the touchdown, but also fumbled. If you're a Collins owner, I'm very concerned. That's his it's the 3rd fumble on the year already. So if this continues, it could start flipping in Allen's favor just on ball security concerns. And both of them looked about the same in terms of what they put up this particular game. Targets shake out as normal, 8 for Crabtree, 7 each for Brown and Snead. Brown continues to be the wide receiver one, though, in terms of his efficiency numbers, going 3 for 116 and 1, including 2 deep passes. It was a 33-yard touchdown and about a 50-plus yard catch and run. Snead's acting as your chain mover, went 6 for 56 and 0. Crabtree had a really bad day, 3 for 29 and 0, and a drop on 8 targets. I'm starting to get a bit worried about him. If I'm picking one of these receivers going forward, Brown is locked in as a low-end wide receiver 2 at worst. Tight ends saw a combined 12 targets, but Hurst is coming back, so now it's going to be 4 players competing for the 10-ish targets that these guys see week in and week out. I want nothing to do with them unless somebody separates or Ben Watson comes back and knocks 3 of these guys out, so we get 1 starter left. In the defense, just playing out of their minds in the second half of games here. They've allowed 9 points in the second half all season. This is a legit dangerous team. At this point, I'm locking and loading them, because even in plus matchups like against the Steelers on the road, they showed up and balled out in the second half. On to the Steelers. Instead of home road Ben, we got first half Ben and second half Ben. In the second half, he threw for just 50 yards and threw a pick after putting up 224 and a touchdown in the first half. Though, better days for them going ahead here. They get Atlanta, Cincy, and Cleveland the next 3 games. Connor's been trending in the wrong direction for the running game. He still got 7 targets in this one, caught 3 for 25 for a bit of a receiving floor, but he was a sad 9 for 19 on the ground. Hopefully he can get it going. My note was here that there's no rumors that Bell's returning soon, and then they made a liar out of me because that got dropped that he's coming back in the Week 7 bye. So you get at least 2 more games out of Connor before you have to worry about Bell if they don't trade him. On to the passing game. Brown and Juju both got 11 targets. Both finished with about 60 yards, and Brown got the touchdown. Better days ahead for both. The game just got real weird in the second half, and the offense came to a complete and utter halt. Vance McDonald was the most impressive of all the pass catchers, I thought, though. He caught all 5 of his targets, went for 62 yards, and if you're streaming tight ends, that's about all you can hope for.
And I did stream him, thankfully.
All right, that's all we got for the games here outside of Monday night, which we'll recap on Wednesday. Let's talk some injuries.
Monday hangovers.
All right, kicking it off first, we're going to go in position order as always. So we have no quarterback injuries of note this week, so we'll start with the running backs. Ezekiel Elliott apparently is dealing with some foot and ankle injuries, some knee bursitis and a tweaked ankle. He's going to play through it, but it's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, it didn't look like it affected him too much, though. You got Leonard Fournette with the hamstring. We touched on this earlier. Until he comes back, TJ Yeldon's a start. I don't know that he was 100% ready to go if he went back out that quick.
Yep, no time frame on that one as of yet. T.Y. Hilton hamstring, they're reporting he's likely out a week or 2 with that.
He's the only viable wide receiver they have. Will Fuller also out with a hamstring. Again, this is an injury he had coming into the season as well. They kept him out the first couple weeks. So Kiki Kuti for as long as he's hurt.
Geronimo Allison suffered a concussion in this one, so now Cobb and Allison could potentially miss this next week.
Yeah, we'll see how that plays out. Travis Benjamin with a foot out indefinitely, not necessarily relevant. He hasn't done anything this year. Both Williams continue to. I mean, I don't even know how much this helps Tyrell. I think this is more of a Mike Williams thing.
Yeah, it was a re-aggravation of a previous injury. Robert Gronkowski re-aggravated his ankle and was out the remainder of the game. We have no report. They do play on Thursday this week.
Right. I think I read earlier that he should be okay, but on Roto World, but we'll see. Tyler Eifert, broken ankle. He's done for the year. That was absolutely gruesome.
Yep.
That's a bad luck injury.
He is getting surgery on that. OJ Howard sprained MCL on his knee. He's out 2 to 4 weeks. Brate is startable in the meantime.
Yeah.
Though not this week. They're on bye.
Yep. But after that, fire up for Cameron Brate. Will Disley, torn patellar tendon. He's done for the year. So Nick Vinette until week 8 is the last man standing. Not a bad play there.
All right. Let's talk some waiver targets.
Waiver wire.
All right. And rapid fire format here, as we've done most of the season, starting at quarterback, you're going to take a guy who's starting against the Chiefs, and that happens to be Blake Bortles this week. So if he's available, consider him.
Yep. Marcus Mariota, the arm looked healthy. He had some nice, and he's got some nice matchups upcoming. So he put up a really good week.
All right. If you feel like stashing him through the bye week, you can grab Mitchell Trubisky. He's got Miami, New England, New York Jets, and the Bills coming off his bye week.
Yeah, all AFC East. Joe Flacco is not owned in most leagues, and through the first part of the season, he's given you 26.7 points, 21.8, 16.3, and 26.2 to be the quarterback 14, and his matchups are not terrible coming up either. So he's giving you some pretty good ceiling.
On to the running backs. TJ Yeldon is the priority pickup if he, for some reason, is not owned. Fournette is hurt again and should miss multiple games.
Nyheim Hines, we've talked about multiple times this episode already. Focal point in the passing game. T.Y. Hilton's going to miss. Marlon Mack not healthy, so he should also be pretty priority.
Yep. The only reason Chubb isn't higher on this list is because Fournette got hurt again. So if Yeldon is not available, I would consider Chubb. Hyde does have some injury history, continues to look good, and his touches may start going up independently of an injury.
Frank Gore, Miami doesn't know what they're doing at running back. He is getting touches. He had 11 and was the lead back this week, so it's not sexy, but if you need some points for an upcoming bye week or because of injury, it's not the worst thing you can do.
I very likely lost to a Frank Gore starter this week. Zeke is dinged up, so Rod Smith should be somebody you consider adding if you have the depth.
Yep. Ronald Jones, he's finally active. Barber's done nothing. You should at least get the opportunity to do things. He didn't do much against the Bears. It's a tough matchup, though.
Mike Davis, he's proven he's the number one. If Carson misses any time, he's going to get touches independently from the sound of it at this point. He's the primary pass catcher on that offense. Yep,
and Ito Smith, who's looked really, really good in the absence of Freeman, moving up into the Coleman role as everything just kind of slid up that depth chart.
Yep, we expect Freeman back, but it's not a guarantee at this point.
Right.
For wide receivers, Taywan Taylor is the one of the probably top 2-3 pickups here you're looking at. Connection established with Mariota. Mariota looks healthy, and no more Rashard Matthews.
Yep. Chris Godwin, they've got Atlanta post-bye, and then Cleveland, and then they're at Cincinnati. He should be owned, and he's just going to be talked about until he clears that 50% threshold.
Yep, so all you out there in your leagues, pick him up. Geronimo Allison, once again, he will be here until he is owned, even after getting concussed.
Yep. Antonio Callaway, 19 targets over the last 2 weeks. That's volume. As soon as he can figure out how to turn that into production, he's a speedy guy that can get you a lot of yak. He should be stashed for now.
All right, these two come as a pair. Ryan Grant and Chester Rogers. Hilton is going to miss a game or two. These are the primary two outside weapons in that situation.
Yeah. Kiki Coutinho, we talked about him earlier. He saw 10 targets. Fuller might miss time. He looked very, very good in his debut.
I think I mistyped this. I think he actually saw 15 targets.
15 targets, 10 receptions. That's what it was.
Yep. Taylor Gabriel, targets continue to be there for him. He was finally being used downfield, and the offense might have taken a step. I'll wait to see it after the bye week, but if you want to stash him if you're in a somewhat deeper league, I like it.
Yep. And Dede Westbrook, 13 targets this week. It's tough to ignore that. He's also flashed some in earlier weeks and was the most consistent receiver of targets last season as well. He started to get some rapport with Bortles and some good matchups coming up.
All right, at the tight end, at this point, if Vance McDonald is not owned and you've lost somebody, he's the number one tight end in Pittsburgh. He should be grabbed.
Yep. Cameron Brate, valuable as long as Jordan Howard is out, or OJ Howard, is out.
All right, Nick Vinetti's the last man standing in Seattle, at least through week 8, and they do tend to use tight ends in the red zone.
Yep, and the next two come as a pair, CJ Uzama and Tyler Kroft, both with Tyler Eifert out. Uzama got more snaps and routes than Kroft did this past week, but Kroft will see some utilization as well.
Yep, and Kroft is the one who has produced before, so people may gravitate toward that name. If I'm grabbing one, though, I personally prefer Uzama. Some couple defenses to keep an eye on. Titans are at the Bills. Broncos at the Jets. Cardinals versus the 49ers. Possibly both defenses in that one. And then Bengals at the Dolphins.
And before we get into injuries, we do have a question from Sawyer. Do you guys think that Bell will get his bell cow workload when he comes back?
I believe we briefly touched on this at the start of the episode. Yes, that just seems to be the Steelers' MO. Is whoever the starting running back is going to get the touches. If he gets traded, I have no fucking clue. But if he's with the Steelers, yes.
Yeah, I think you will as well. You might see some James Conner mixed in, but it's not going to be anything more than a 5 to 7 touch change of pace roll.
That's based on that history. That's even too much. It's probably like 2 or 3.
All right, and let's wrap it up with our drops, which I should have ready because it's me.
Weekly cuts.
I didn't mean to. Why did that start?
I don't know.
I didn't even click that.
I don't even know what that is.
That was a Cleveland Rocks drop.
Oh, right.
Cleveland does not rock this week.
Nope, they lost in overtime. All right. For drops,
We don't edit.
we only have one at quarterback. We got Ryan Fitzpatrick. Winston is now your starter.
We have nothing at running back, nothing else at quarterback. So wide receiver, Chris Hogan's been awfully disappointing this year. He hasn't had a game over 5 targets or over 30 yards. The only thing he's done was a 2-touchdown game against Jacksonville.
Yep.
Edelman's back. He's droppable right now, just based on that.
Yeah, unless you're in a deeper league, I wouldn't bother holding. Tight ends, Tyler Eifert is out for the season.
Will Dissly also out for the season.
And a lot of people picked up the Colts defense. I know I was recommending a little bit on the Sunday show. They gave you a solid performance against the Texans. They get the Patriots this week on the road. I do not like that matchup nearly as much.
Yep.
All right. Wrapping up the episode here, some bye weeks to look ahead. Week 5, you've got no Bears, no Buccaneers, so they come off their shellacking of a matchup, and they both get to lick their wounds if you're the Buccaneers and celebrate their victories for the Bears. Week 6, you get the Lions and the Saints. So no Kamara, no Ingram, no Galladay, Tate. There's a lot of big weapons missing in that game. And Week 7 is when we jump up to 4. No Packers, Raiders, Seahawks, and Steelers. So start planning ahead, guys. Have some plans for these matchups when you're going to be losing players. Preview the rest of the week. Wednesday, we're going to do a draft redo to look at how value has changed at the top of these drafts. So we're going to probably redo one of us drafting at the top of a draft, middle of the draft, and end of the draft. Just give you some ideas some of the players we'd be looking at compared to where they were originally going based on the original ADP. Friday, of course, we're going to preview all the Week 5 games and recap what happened Thursday night. And then Sunday, we'll be here 10:30 in the morning, live on YouTube like we are right now.
As always.
Go over the live news, inactives, and questions for you guys. So 4:30 BFF, who had to run for the day. Dan Thury's not with us. We have Christopher Hopper.
At Hot BFF with 2 Ps. We actually have real life jobs too, and that's what Thury had to run to. So
yep, will continue to be the case until he can get his life down to one job. So we're hoping soon. I am at Nick Sparts. Follow the show at Beerfield FF, and we'll see you guys next time on Beerfield Fantasy Football.
See ya.